have their personal protective gear on. They're all lined up. So folks, what we're going to do is ask you to give us a hand here. Give them a countdown. We're going to start with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let them go. They're going to be off and running here in this Power Wheel event. Smash and crash and tear 'em up. Power Wheel Demolition Derby. Starting out your 51st in a row that they've had the Demolition Derby here. They would have had the 50th last year. Unfortunately, they had some issues and most everything got canceled. So we're back to a little bit of normalcy now, and we certainly appreciate everybody that came out here to your 2021 Portage County Randolph Fair. Tonight's Demolition Derby is brought to you by Lepo Rents and Charshone Chevy and Ford. We have to send a big thank you out to them for their generous sponsorship of this Demolition Derby tonight. And again, we certainly appreciate all the parents allowing these young people to come out here and have a great time crashing it up out here to start things off for this evening's festivities. Now, if you're back in the pits at any of the events that you see tonight, we're going to be running those same events tomorrow, except we will not have the 50th class tomorrow, and we will be adding a kicker class tomorrow. But all the other classes are going to be the same. We will have all of the other classes out here, same as we do tonight. Now again, folks, if you have a young person that thinks they might like to do this tomorrow, you go out here. A lot of the parents will swap out the stock battery, maybe put a lawn and garden style battery. They've got some other modifications they can make. I want to modify them too. Obviously, it is for fun, just so these young people go out here and have a great time. You can see some of them get the stickers out there, get the numbers on them, paint them up, put the stacks and the headers out in the hood. Great time to get a little bit of time out in the shop, getting their Power Wheel units ready. Looks like one of them even got a fancy set of strobe lights on it, zooming around out there. Again, the only other thing you need is to have a helmet just to protect children that are out there on the track. So again, very easy to do so. Now, looks like we have one kind of dropping off the pace. That's all right. You're going to see that happen with the large cars later on tonight. Sometimes, unfortunately, the automobiles just don't work for you as long as you wish they would. But the good news is we do have a little something for each and every driver to commemorate their running in this Demolition Derby. So before you head back to your pit stall, make sure you stop and check with one of the track officials. Again, we do have a little memento for each driver out there tonight. We got some hard hitting going on, it appears, out there. These are tough customers out on the track. Looks like I see a lot of smiles thank each and every one of the Power Wheel drivers, and again, their parents for allowing them to go out there and participate in this event. And again, we're going to be doing this all tomorrow as well. Tonight, we do have Lepo Reds here. We do have Char Show with us as sponsors. Again, we certainly thank them for their sponsorship. We also have to thank Char Show, Chevy and Ford in the East, as well as WNIR 100 FM for being the sponsors of the day. That's your 2021 Portage County Randolph Fair. We are under 5 minutes on this event. It is going to be a timed event, as we always have them out here. So we're going to give these drivers time to have a little bit more fun. I've got a special treat for everybody out here. We will have the singing of the national anthem after this is complete and before we bring out our first event of the large cars out here. We're going to be starting out with the youth drivers tonight. So the youth drivers are going to be the first class out. That's going to be the youth minis. And we'll go to the 50th anniversary event, followed by the full-size trucks. And finally, we do have the Smash Mini class rounding things out tonight. Now, folks, if you do want to remember tonight's event, we do have Mid-Vid racing videos here capturing all of the Demolition Derby action. And I see the camera is rolling for these young people out here. So if you would like a copy of a DVD, you can come up and order that anytime between heats. And they will compile these over to DVD, get them mailed out to you, and you will have that copy for many years to come. And remember this and look back on it when these young people are graduating and having young people of their own. They can look back to 2021 on how their Derby careers all started. But again, you can stop up here at the Crow's Nest anytime. They will be taking orders all night long. They'll going to have it ready some tomorrow, tonight. Yeah. He will go home and compile these over to a DVD and have those brought back tomorrow. If you don't want to wait for it in the mail, he can hand deliver it to you tomorrow. Still $10. And for the low rate of only $10, you can have one of these DVDs. And Mid-Vid always does great quality work at a very reasonable price. $10. It's very reasonable for a lifetime of memories.
You're going 10 minutes on the clock.
And we are down to 1 minute to go. 1 minute to go for these young folks. Did you guys want to talk before the anthem, or how do you got stuff to do? You want to
However you want to do it. This is the last one we got tonight.
Okay. So, well, and that'll probably be good. Like maybe as they're leaving while it's still quiet, you guys can do your thing, and I'll just turn it over. You can introduce yourself. And is somebody going to invite them out to the sale?
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Whenever they get them out and spend their money.
You know I'm already.
That's
you know I have to play. Okay, then yeah, it doesn't have to be. It's just because we're probably going to be here. Okay, looks like the red flags are flying. So if you hold them up, folks, hold them up out here. Dave, you showed up just a little too late. Story of my life. This is going to be the next generation of Demolition Derby drivers out there, folks. And folks, if you look down on the track, there was a golf cart that came out there. This gentleman is the Fair Board member. Dave Thompson has been working with Smash It for years. He is always the one in charge of the Demolition Derby. Dave always gets business from every one of our staff members out here, always giving him a hard time, but we appreciate Dave and all that he does as far as his fair board duties and getting the Demolition Derby organized, getting all the people.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets recollect the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And another wonderful job. Again, Mallory has been up here many, many years, and we
2, 1, let them go, and they're going to be off and running here in the youth event of the Smash It, Crash It, Tear 'em Up Automobile Demolition Derby. And again, all of tonight's Demolition Derby action is brought to you by Charchone, Chevy and Ford, and Lepo Rents. The Buzz Bombs are making a name for themselves out here. Now you'll notice this is the youth event. We do have these young people out here with an adult in the passenger seat. They can be anywhere between 12 and 16 years old. If they're 16, they cannot have a driver's license yet. Keep that in mind. And it looks like the mud is just a-flying. They do add a little bit more mud and water. Found down here, got the 812 of Anaya Gregory getting spun around, working this west end of the track. 77 junior, Aiden Buell out of Alliance, heading down there toward Doug Hale in one of the other 77s. Doug's here out of Akron, got the 1X westbound and down. Mitchell Adams out of Suffield coming down through here, and it looks like the number of 48, David Pinar out of Ravenna, down at the far west end, taking a heck of a wallop from the number of 70. That is Kelsey Hamrick out of Rootstown. Kelsey Hamrick in the 7-0. Pretty easy to find. Got the 70 and the number 10. Got the flags flying on the top of those vehicles. Now it looks like all the action has migrated down to the west end of the track. Right in front of us we do have Ashlyn Moore out of Talmadge in the 8X. Got the ball jam down through here with 6-29 of Dakota Basford out of Philippi, West Virginia, right in front of her. believe that's the 812 of Anaya Gregory getting spun around as the 8X just muscles her way down through that. That's Ashlyn Moore out of Mountain. Ava, the number of 77. That's Ava Stevens out of Edinburgh. Coming on down through here. And 42X. In reverse, that's George Lilly out of Randolph. Sliding on down through here. The number of 70. Kelsey Hamrick out of Rootstown. We'll be taking a punch in the nose courtesy of the 8X who's coming on down to the west end. That's Ashlyn Moore out of Talmadge. The 811 Mallory Heater out of Randolph. We got to take a look at. And we've got some track work down at this end real quick. Looks like one of the way in this youth mini class. Well, and after the 811 backed off, you can see all the damage here over on the infield side. A lot of damage to that passenger over on the 77 of Doug Hale's machine. So, again, it was a safety issue, and just want to make sure all the drivers and all of their passengers are safe out here. Again, all these youth drivers are anywhere between the age of 12 and 16. You got to remember that these are very young drivers out here. None of them have their driver's licenses yet. They do have a very brave adult in the passenger seat out here. Well, right now it looks like a 42X Jordan Luley out of a Randolph heading on back there by the number of 70 of Kelsey Hamrick out of a Rootstown. Kelsey's got the whole west end of the track all to herself down there. The 811 Mallory Heater out of a Randolph taking a shot in the front fender courtesy of the number 70 of Kelsey Hamrick. Got the 8X coming on down through. Ashlyn Moore out of Talmadge. Well, and doggone it, looks like they lost the 1X just now. Looks like they just removed the flag from the doorpost. Okay, well, looks like we are down to 4 vehicles running. Looks like the 8X, Ashlyn Moore out of Talmadge. Number 42X, that is George Luley out of a Randolph. Got the number 70 of Kelsey Hamrick out of a Rootstown. The number 811 Mallory Heater out of a Randolph. 42X George Luley heading off to the east side. The 811 Maori Heater sitting sideways, trying to get out of the predicament they're in right now, taking a barrage of hits from the 42X. Off to their east side, George Luley out of a Randolph. The 8X coming on in Ashland Lore out of Talmadge. Number 70, Kelsey Hamrick out of a Rootstown. Looks like the 8X weaving through the stopped traffic right now. Ashland Lore heading on down to the east end. The 42X heading west. We're going to try to meet in the middle with the 811 Maori Heater sitting sideways out here. And the 42X muscling their way through the line. George Luley. Luley going nose to nose with the 7-0 of Kelsey Hamrick out of Rootstown. I believe we might be down to 3. I'm not sure. It looks like the 811 may be out over there. Movement out of 3 of them for sure. That George Luley showing movement. 42X. Luley is here out of a Randolph. Let's hold him up. Right now. Bright green 8X of Ashland Lore down there with the number 70 of Kelsey Hamrick. Kelsey's here out of Rootstown. Ashland Lore out of Talmadge in the 8X. And the 42X George Luley, hometown driver out of Randolph. Well, and again, we got a lot of the young folks out here with us tonight. The drivers all ranging in age from 12 to 16. If they are 16, they're not able to have their driver's license. They are starting out as young as 12 out here. They do have it. Whoop, hold them up. Okay, so we're down to the last 3 vehicles running. These last 3 all getting some prize money and a trophy tonight. Sounds like the number 70 is starting to kick on not all the cylinders. A lot of black smoke starting to chug up through the number 70. Right now, the number 70, Kelsey Hamrick out of Rootstown, having a little bit of a rough time out here. It sounds like Kelsey is on the timer. Got Ashlyn Moore out of Talmadge on the 8X. Now at the east end, and the 42X, George Lulai out of a Randolph, coming down through, spinning around, taking a shot in the front bumper. It looks like we do have the number 70 going to be settling for a third place finish. So folks, it's down to 2 right now. We got that bright green machine, the 8X, Ashlyn Moore out of Talmadge, and the 42X, George Lulai out of a Randolph, battling it out for the number 1 spot tonight. First and second is yet to be decided. And again, the passengers, the adults in the passenger seat, giving them a lot of great tips out there. Young people out here having a great time. It's always nice to get down through the line and talk to them and listen to them before the heat, pointers that they're getting. We have a young person that thinks they might like to do this sometime, and we have all of our rules at smashitderby.com. And it looks like the 42X coming on out through there, going to drive right over the nose of the 8X Ashlyn Moore, and driven up and over by George Lulai out of Randolph. 42X still running strong. The 8X not running bad either. 42X getting a little bit of distance between him and the 8X. And I'll tell you, if you've never driven a front-wheel drive automobile in reverse on a slick surface, it's not as easy to do as one might think. They get very swirly very quickly out here, so these young people are doing quite a good job. And a 42X on the offensive. That rear fender on the driver's side of the 8X Ashlyn Moore. Your hometown driver in the 42X. George Lulai back here turning around, and he's going to use the nose of his automobile now. Trying to slip by there, but the 8X was able to sidestep that last hit, but not that one. That's going to put one heck of a notch, and it's amazing the 8X is still firing back up. See the way that thing collapsed after that last shot in the nose. Not a whole lot left in front of that header sticking out from the hood right there. I'm thinking there's just not a lot out in front of the engine right now in the engine compartment. Everything is stacked in there pretty well, and here comes the 42X. And that 8X is mighty elusive. Ashlyn Moore sidestepping it once again. 42X going back for another hit. It looks like he is working it as best he can, but it looks like he's having some steering issues on the 42X. George Lulai doing the best he can, but I don't see that wheel turning a whole lot, so I'm thinking there may be some sort of issues on the steering of the 42X. Both automobiles showing a considerable amount of damage in the front, but both still seemingly running pretty well. goes the 42X. Making contact on Ashland Lore. Pushing that 8X off to the side. George Lulai making contact once again. It looks like he's going to continue a barrage of hits out here, this time going for the front axle on that 8X right now. That's one of the weak spots. And I'm sure his passenger's helping him out, telling him where to angle these hits. And it looks like the 8X back, trying to work her way out of there. Now the referees do tend to be a little lenient on their counts on this particular heat just because all of the drivers are quite young. And starting at the age of 12 up to the age of 16, as long as you don't have a driver's license, you are able to participate in the youth mini event. Well, it looks like 42X momentarily stopped. I think he's still running. Both cars doing remarkably well here in the late going of this youth mini event. We are going to be having the youth minis again tomorrow. Well, it looks like the 8X has stalled out right now, but you got her going. That's Ashland Lore in the 8X out of Talbot. Randolph in the 42X. And it looks like a 42X and the 8X both stalling out. That's an indication both these cars are quite hot today. know, it is amazing. You hear how often these things are stalling out. Think about that next time your vehicle starts or won't start in the morning. These things keep on starting and keep on starting, and they are extremely hot, I'll guarantee. The 8X right now seems to be having a little bit of a rough time getting that thing going, so I'm thinking Ashland Moore may be getting toward the end of all this. Right now it looks like the 42X with the advantage still down there running, getting jockeyed around. The 8X with the seconds ticking by on the clock. The referees keeping a very close eye down here. 42X George Lulai getting turned around. The 8X of Ashland Moore on the timer right now. And there it is, folks. It looks like the time has expired. What a great heat ran by all of the drivers out here, and especially the last three. And there's your victor emerging from the 42X. George Lulai out of Randolph with the win in the 42X down there on the east end of the track. Down here in the bright green machine, the 8X is going to be Ashland Moore out of Talmadge with a second place finish. And in third, right about track central, is going to be the number 70, Kelsey Hamrick out of Rootstown. Out here. Got the Woody Wagon, that's John Foster out of Pahokee, Florida, sponsored by Deegan Foster Incorporated. That's going to be Clayton Day in the number 538 out of Beloit. There's a new sheriff in town. Got the number 71, Eric Noel out of Rootstown, sponsored by Stevens Pain Recovery Center in Streetsboro. Here comes the 54, Josh Ripsick out of Rootstown. And finally, the number 841, Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna. 4, 3, 2, 1, let them go. They're going to be off and running here in this 50th anniversary special class. Here is your Portage County Randolph Affair commemorating the 50th anniversary of Demolition Derby action here. And again, these automobiles are not easy to find anymore. You can already tell the V8s are in town, quite a different sound to this class compared to the last class of the youth drivers we had out there. The sheriff's coming on in. Eric Noel out of Rootstown. And a 71 goes back to back with the Woody Wagon. That's Eric Noel back to back with John Foster in that Woody Wagon. That's the number 54 down at the far west end. John Ripsick out of Rootstown. We got the 841 Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna. He's down here, and it looks like all of the action migrating down to the west. 71 pulling off to the side. Eric Noel out of Rootstown. Got a whole lot of running room all by himself down there. Target looks like slide on into the 54 of John Repsick out of Rootstown. Red flag automobile. Repsick currently squared off nose to nose with John Foster in the Woody Wagon. 841 on the breakaway. Jason Lovejoy heading down by the sheriff. 71, Eric Noel out of Rootstown. Y1, Jim Youngblood out of Rootstown. Sidestepping and heading east. Got the 54 following him up. John Repsick. Bumper to bumper. The Y1 of Jim Youngblood. Pulled away, and here comes the sheriff in the 71. Eric Noel out of Rootstown. Stacking them up 3 deep. The John Repsick out of Rootstown in the number 54. Once again, nose to nose with the Woody Wagon. That's driven by John Foster out of Pahokee, Florida. 54 Repsick machine. A little more real estate for the pack. But the Y1 Jim Youngblood going to be cutting him off about halfway down his run. 8:41 rolling in. Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna. And the Woody Wagon starting to drop a little bit on the rear. The bumper going down just a little bit. 5:38. Clayton Day. Whoop, hold him up, hold him up. Once again, so we're going to get the action back on. All of our vehicles still running out here. All of this older iron out here still making some noise. And the Y1 Jim Youngblood breaking away from the 841 of Jason Lovejoy. Clayton Day in the 538. John Foster's in the Woody Wagon. John Foster here out of Pahokee, Florida. John Repsick in the 54. And Eric Noel out of Rootstown is driving that yellow and black number 71. Is going to get the Portage County Randolph first with the Malachi truck out there in the middle of the track. Yeah, the 71 of Eric Noel and the 841 Jason Lovejoy on the other side. And 538 of Clayton Day got sandwiched. It's in the middle, right at track central out there. Down here by himself. The rest of the pack is headed east. Got the Woody Wagon down there. John Foster up against the concrete barricade. The Y1 of Jim Youngblood right behind with their bumper to bumper, stacking about 3 deep. John Repsick in the 54 coming into the pack. And it looks like they got into the 538 of Clayton Day. Out there, 71 of Eric Noel down to the sheriff machine. Rounding out the pack, 50 coming down through here. Y1 of Jim Youngblood out of Rootstown. Looks like the 841 has opened up the gates and letting the horses run. Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna. And there he goes. I think we got a bit of a grudge match going on down here between the 841 of Jason Lovejoy and the Y1 of Jim Youngblood. These two down at the far east end of the track. Referees trying to get them back into the rest of the real estate they got. They've got quite a bit of it out here. The Y1, Jim Youngblood, going to sidestep it and make contact with Eric Noel out of Rootstown. They're going to try to keep them on the track area as best they can. We got a whole lot of track real estate out here and want to keep them inside of the concrete. The Y1 Jim Youngblood up at Rootstown getting his machine jockeyed around at the 530. 538 right in the middle, and oh, we've got what appears to be, if I was guessing, I can't quite tell from this vantage point. Got some issues with the 841. RPM worked up on that thing. That was a clean hit on the driver's side. It was in front of the driver's door on the 841. 841's up against the concrete barricade. Definitely losing something off that. I'm not sure if it's coolant or oil. Oh, I'll tell you, that's not going to help out the Y1. A whole lot of steam inside there. The referee's keeping a close eye and checking on the driver. That is good to go. That's coming out of the exhaust. And the Y1, Jim Youngblood, is back on the move. I bet I know where he's going to be trying to go for the 54 right now, John Repsick. Oh, and look at the 538 late today, sustaining quite a bit of damage. That 841. Hard nose on that thing. You can see he folded up the rear trunk deck of the 538. Quick fashion. Now he's turning his sights on the 71 of Eric Well. And that's the 841. Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna. Whoa, we had the Y1 of Jim Youngblood pop up in the air. Jason Lovejoy found himself in a spot he just didn't like. He hammered down. Well, looks like the party is poured out east end of the track. Number 71. Here comes Jim Youngblood. The Y1 is going to spin around and go after the sheriff. John Repsick out of Brookstown getting sideways and going to take it on the side. From the Woody Wagon, that's John Foster out of Pahokee, Florida. 538 is late today. Getting down in front of the main grandstand. Oh, and look at the Woody Wagon getting sent up on that rear end. A lot of damage down through there, and there they go. The Y1, Jim Youngblood, pushing the 54 of John Repsick out of Rootstown up on top of that concrete barricade. Got him perched up there. We'll see if he's able to get down onto the track. The 841, Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna, taking advantage of the opportunity that he had, and all of the 6 automobiles heading down to that one corner down there on the track. 54, John Repsick still perched up on top of the concrete barricade. Currently on the timer, the Y1, Youngblood. Getting jockeyed around, and the sparks flying as the 841 of Jason Lovejoy pops down through there. The Woody Wagon of John Foster looks like he's in one heck of a predicament. He's got the Y1 of a Jim Youngblood perched in there. Jim Youngblood has his work cut out for him And I think he's going to do it, folks. I think he's going to wiggle his way out of there. He's almost got it. And I think that's going to do it. Oh, he just snuck by, and Jim Youngblood is back in the mix. Right back at Track Central. Let's go down there. The Woody Wagon of John Foster and the 54 John Repnick down there at the far east end, currently on the timer. Four of the other automobiles still running strong. Now, if we remember, turn them loose once again. We know these automobiles are very hard out here. The Y1, Jim Youngblood, if you remember, a few moments ago had lost all the coolant in one big blow up of his radiator and or one of the radiator hoses went out in stellar fashion out there, and all that valuable coolant went up in steam. So we know the Y1 is extremely hot. All of these cars very hot right now. The 71 of Eric Noel squared off the 841 of Jason Lovejoy. Y1 having a little bit longer time in between restarts out here. Okay, looks like we are down to 3. Doggone it, that losing all the coolant out of that Y1. That thing got extremely hot. Jim Youngblood running one heck of a heat out here. The way that blew in stellar fashion. Just glad that he's okay with all that hot liquid coming back. Right now we do have the line 38 of Clayton Day is still running out 58-41. The Jason Lovejoy, 71 of Eric Noel over Rootstown. Well, the 50th anniversary class, running strong out here in these last 3 Eric Noel in the sheriff's machine. He's here out of Rootstown. Jason Lovejoy from Ravenna. Behind the wheel, the 841, and Clayton Day driving the bike. Jason Lovejoy making some noise. It looks like 71's going to split the difference between the two. definitely not letting any moss grow under his tires out here. That is Jason Lovejoy getting spun around right now. He's here out of Ravenna. Clayton Day in the 538 took a heck of a wallop. That front driver's corner, the nose, and got it bent up in the air. The 841 did some damage to the rear of that 538 earlier. And the 71 of Eric Noel out of Ritztown off to the side right now. Getting jockeyed around in the sheriff's machine. Sounds like the 538 starting to sputter just a bit after sustaining a lot of front end damage on that last hit from Jason Lovejoy. Oh my goodness, I'll tell you, that did some damage to the radiator on the 538. Clayton Day, that last hard hit. And here comes the 841, Jason Lovejoy. All night long right now. He's squared off with Clayton Day in the 538, backing into the nose of the number 71 of Eric Knoll. And look at the nose going up in the air on the 538. Clayton Day in the 538 currently stalled out. Smoke belching out. The 841 stopping shy of the driver's door here. And it looks like 538, at least momentarily, has got her back running once again. That is Jason Lovejoy in the 841 out in the middle. On the infield side, we got the 538 of Clayton Day, and off to the side is Eric Noel out of Ritztown. It's 71 still battling it out in the late going of this 50th anniversary class. Now again, these are the cars that they've had planned to run last year. Unfortunately, everything got canceled. Last year would have been the 50th running of the Demolition Derby out here. 71 getting spun around. 841, Jason Lovejoy coming back inside. Clayton Day's 538. Eric Noel on number 71. Eric is here out of Ritztown in the 71. Ravenna is the hometown. Jason Lovejoy in his 841. Clayton Day from Beloit in the 538. Well, I think I'm getting the sign. We're down to 2. Looks like the 538 is out. We're down to 2, folks. Clayton Day in the 538, settling for a third place finish. Jason Lovejoy in the 841, going to be rocking it out with Eric Noel in the 71. Who's first and who's going to settle for second place tonight? Jason Lovejoy, sponsored by Allen Alloy. Stevens Pain Recovery Center, Greensboro. Now from this vantage point, the 71 appears not to be able to steer his automobile. Looks like he's cranking on that steering wheel, but it looks like it is turned to the left. I see him trying to straighten it up, but I don't think he's able to. And I think that last hit from the 841 on that front bumper kind of did some damage to the radiator. Jason Lovejoy's vehicle. Now the 71 with the disadvantage not being able to steer. Looks like he's starting to get her straightened out right now. And hold him up, hold him up, hold him up. The red flags are flying out here. And it looks like, I believe, the 71 was not able to make contact the way that tire was cranked off to the far left. The 841, Jason Lovejoy, going to be taking away the win out here. Second place is respectably finished by the 71 of Eric Noel out of Rootstown. And in third is Clayton Day in the 538 out of Beloit. Now again, congratulations to all of these drivers. All of tonight's Demolition Derby action. So folks, help me give them a countdown, starting with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let them go. And they are going to be off like a herd of turtles coming off the line out here. But it looks like a 722 is going to break the ice. Out of the Garrettsville. Out of Akron. Lighten up the night sky with the ring of those big V8s. You got the 918 of Russ Heater out of the Randolph right here at the track center. 722 pushing his way through Daniel. And look at him go down at the far end. My goodness. 722 perched high atop the concrete block. Out of Akron, back to back with the number 42 of Jim Lulai. Randolph, 9mm making quite a bit of noise. FC40 Scott Krieger out of Rootstown powering his way through there. his way down here. And the number 42, Jim Lula out of a Randolph, backing into the middle of the track right now. Now you'll notice the 42 punching out quite a bit of smoke. He's got a power diesel down under the hood of that 42. See the black smoke flying out of Jim Lula's number 42. Mix it up with the 918 of a Russ Heater out of a Randolph coming down here next to the FC40 of Scott Greener out of a Rootstown. 9mm Nick Bonner out of Talmadge making quite a bit of noise. Muscles his way down through here. Making some noise. Nick Bonner out of Talmadge. Currently locks bumper to bumper with the number 918 of a Russ Heater out of a Randolph. 42. Trying to get jockeyed around. Looks like he's just going to make his way down to the east end of the track. Underway. They know that these are very warm out here. Don't want to keep them stopped any longer than they have to. Looks like we did have at least one driver hop out of his vehicle. Looks like it's 818. Maybe out as well. Is trying to restart his 310 rolling down through here. Tar Heel Roofing side of that number 9mm. Hammer down. That's bumper to bumper, the number 70 of Vince Cameron, right about track center. A lot of steam rolling out that power trip. 42, Jim Lula. Well, we are down to 3 vehicles left running. See Joe Heater in the number 310. Hometown driver. Also another hometown driver, Jim Lula in 42. Battling down to the 9mm of Nick Bonner out of Talmadge. First, second, and third all on the line here in the full-size. working his way around the bend. Might have some steering wheel. And that 9mm Nick Bonner making some noise out there. Wearing off. Well, and it looks like we got some front end damage. You can see the front wheels are not responding to the inputs on the 9mm steering wheel. Those headers are starting to blow. 9mm right now. That thing's being blowing the rosy red on there. See it. Joe Heater in the 310. Driving out of Randolph. He's heading down through here. On the back of the 42, Jim Blueline. Making a lot of noise out there. Those RPMs been up. Trajectory on the other two vehicles. Blue Line trying to get jockeyed around. He's got some tires down on his pickup truck. A good vantage point. The 9mm Honor. Just that. And you can see those front tires. He's definitely Jim Blue Line, 42. Well on his. Out here. And that 9mm getting hotter and hotter. Truck heat. Battle on. Bonner, they're hammered down trying to weasel that thing out of that hole that he was getting shoved back into, and I think he's got her turned around, and I'll tell you that's quite a feat considering he doesn't have any control of at least one of his front tires. You can see those inputs from the steering wheel definitely not making it down there to the steer tires. So it looks like the 42 is out of time out there. Going to be in third place. Blue Line going to finish here in a third. All right, now we're down to two. Trying to get these drivers split apart a little bit. 9mm Nick Bonner out of Talmadge. And Joe Heater in the 310. Joe's got one tire completely gone. He's got the rim down on the track on the right rear. be a tough one to jockey your way out of right there. The 310, Joe Heater pushing the 9mm down into a little bit of a hole. We'll see if he's able to work his way out of that predicament. Joe Heater out of a Randolph in the 310. Nick Bonner out of Salvage 9mm. Like the 9mm working its way out of there. He's got an awful lot of steam coming back in the compartment. Referees. And right now, it looks like it may be coming down to just a matter of seconds. The stopwatches were out, and the 310 made the last contact, and he is going to finish in first. That is Joe Heater, hometown driver out of a Randolph in the 310. The 9mm Nick Bonner drove one. A heck of a truck heat out here. He did have the 1 minute. The refs were all around there with the stopwatches out. He had that thing pegged to the floor in the 9mm. I'll tell you, Nick Bonner had those headers glowing rosy red. And the referees were talking back and forth as the seconds were ticking by. And they were down to the 50, 51. They were counting them off, and I'll tell you, it was down to the seconds. So the referees doing their job. Joe Heater doing his with the win in the 310. Second place, the 9mm Nick Bonner. I'll tell you, and in third, the 42, Jim Lulai out of a Randolph, another hometown driver. Again. That's going to be the number 715. Familiar name, Chris Millers out of Chesterland. Following him is going to be Robert Mason in the 529 out of Ravenna. Here comes Josh Burns in the 608 out of Louisville, sponsored by Salco Machine. The number 14, Eric Burwell, is here out of Canton. There comes the 55X. That's George Long out of Kent. Following him is going to be the FC40 Junior, Hutton Krieger out of Rootstown. That's going to be the 69, Brad Haskins. We got three of them in this heat. The 555, Thomas Mangold out of a Randolph, followed by the 342 of Joe Falat out of Brimfield. 755 is going to be Andy Larkins out of a Waynesburg. And that is the 34, I believe. I don't have a 34 on here. I do have a, looks like a number 12. Well, there's the 96K, Tony Mangold out of a Randolph. Followed by the number 53, David Knar. That's the gnarly dog, Knar out of Ravenna. And got the 00 coming on now, Sam Mars out of a Randolph. And Rod Schoaf out of Rootstown, sponsored by MDR Auto Service. Looks like the 88 sneaking in. Christopher Murray out of Atwater. The 05 going to be Aaron Eckhart out of Rootstown. Looks like we've got the Neff. That's Wesley Neff in the 10-9. And we do still have some room down at this end. Looks like we just got them squeaked in there. That's going to be the 87 of Josh Bailey out of Mogador. We did have the 4 high, it looks like, or the 4 double T, Chris Kravitz out of Ravenna, and the 26L of LJ Lawson out of Kent. So we did have them. If they snuck in, I apologize. We have a lot of Smash It mini cars, and it looks like the green flags are up in the air. So folks, help me count them down, starting with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let them go, and they're going to be off and running here at the Smash It, Crash It, Tear 'em Up Automobile Mini Car Demolition Derby event. And look at these cars. Get the action back underway in the Smash It Mini class. Got the 0-1 rolling down through here. John Petrie in a Manaway orange automobile. Andy Larkins in the 755. The 88 Christopher Murray out of Atwater. Sam Martin at 00. Down here on the east end of the track, we've got a 87 out of Mogador. Hunt Krieger in the F-16 out of Rootstown. Look at the 715 go. That was Chris Millers. It is getting busy out there in that lime green and white paint scheme that he has year in and year out. 715. Triple 5. Tom Mansell running out of down to the east end right now. It looks like 755. Andy Harkins out of Waynesburg pushing his way back in here. We got one of our 69 stalled out. Like maybe down to the count. George Long out of Kent, 55. Loose. Here's the smash it mini class. Got the 715 Chris Dillers here in that lime green and white paint scheme that he's always got. Got the 608 Josh Burns over here right next to him. Josh going to split the difference between the number 88 of Christopher Murray out of Atwater. 05 for rolling on down first. Aaron Eckert out of Rootstown. He's going to take a heck of a wallop in the side and get shoved down the track. And down at the far east end, the 529 is staying busy. Robert Mason out of Ravenna. That blue machine with the orange numbers. Look at the west end. They're shoving the 05 of Aaron Eckert down in that corner. That was 608. Josh Burns, that fancy on down there. Rolling it down. Down the pike. Andrew Whiteley out of Ravenna. And Eric Long is at number 12. All the drivers out here. On Petrie. Manaway. Orange automobile with 01 on the side. Gnarly Dog is still in it. They are 53. Now it looks like 755 is going to be rolling its way down through there. Out of Waynesburg. Number 14 has been putting on a heck of a show tonight. Eric Burwell out of Kent got the hammer down. Number 322 automobile down here. That's the track. Joe Palat out of Brimfield. Now going after the 0-1 of Sean Petrie out of a Manaway, 342, going to retake the earlier hit that he got off of number 14 earlier. And down the track they go toward the east end. Heck of an event out here. Going to be a great way to round things out tonight. The first night of the Smash Demolition Derby. All of this is brought to you by Charshone Ford and Chevy, and of course our friends at Lepo Rents. Andrew Whiteley out of Ravenna. A little bit of steam rolling off his engine compartment down there. He's got 53 sitting beside him. Leaves the 53. He's still showing a little. That is the Gnarly Dog out of Ravenna. Dave Bernard. Josh Burns is behind the wheel. That's 608 with that fancy roof sign glittering in the light track. Way down through here. Looks like 14 could be close on his tail. Burwell like we have about 7 vehicles currently running out here. 7 of them currently in the mix. Well, it looks like a number 14. It's inside. Right now, the number 12. Yeah, doggone it, we did lose 342. I'm being told 342. Currently out. Joe Salat looks like 0-1. Ran out of time is what I was being told on the 0-1. That's why they were bringing him to a stop, trying to get his attention down there. He was down in that far corner. So the 0-1 got out just after. We have movement possibly. Out of 4 of them now, they're kind of dropping off. I do see the number 12 out there. Very long. Now 755, Andy Larkins out of Waynesburg. Referees out there, looks like number 12. Pulling off. Now it looks like 755. Andy Larkin rolling on in the 608 around in the corner. Josh Burns out of the loop. Well, the 755, Andy Larkins out of Waynesburg has the number 12 up against the wall. A few hits on it, but here comes the number 608 of Josh Burns around the corner. Sliding down through here, back in the middle. 34, Tyler Dodd. 75, infield ball, right in front of the 12 of Eric Long. That 12 doesn't sound like it's hitting on all four cylinders right now. Doggone it, there goes the flag. 75. Starting to get mighty warm out here. Battling out with the 608 of the Josh Burns out of Louisville, sponsored by Seiko Machine. And watch out for that 80. It looks like he's going to call tonight. That thing is hot and possibly right on the edge. So let's bring him to a stop. I think that is going to be it, folks. Right there, your winner behind the wheel of the 608. Is Josh Burns out of Louisville. Second place is the 34 of Tyler Dodd. And in third is going to be the number 12, Eric Long out of Brimfield.
The drivers and referees are all set. So folks, if you would, help me give them a countdown, starting with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let them go. yet to be decided. People out here having a great time. Down to the until before the heat. now. It looks like the 42X with the advantage still down there running, getting jockeyed around. The 8X with the seconds ticking by on the clock. The referee keeping a very close eye down here. 42X George Lulai gets around the 8X of Ashland Moore on the timer right now. And there it is, folks. It looks like the time has expired. What a great deep ran by all of the drivers out here, especially the last three. And there's your victory emerging from the 42X. George Lulai out of Rainbow with the win. In the 42X down there on the east end of the track. Down here in the bright green machine, the 8X is going to be Ashland Moore out of Talwyn with a second place finish. And in third, right about track central, is going to be the number 70, Kelsey Hamrick out of Rootstown. Again, congratulations to all three of the drivers. Now, Kelsey was sponsored by Biz here. Got the winning wagon, that's John Foster out of Pahokee, Florida, sponsored by Deegan Foster Incorporated. That's going to be Clayton Day, the number 538 out of White. The new sheriff in town. Got the number 71, Eric Noel out of Rootstown, sponsored by Stevens Pain Recovery Center in Streetsboro. Here comes the 54, Josh Ripsick out of Rootstown. And finally, the number 841, Jason Lovejoy out of Ravenna, sponsored by Allen Alloy. Again, this is our 50th anniversary class here. They were able to swap the engines out on these older automobiles. And it looks like that's going to round out this class. Our referees and drivers are ready. So let's give them a countdown. Starting with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. down to 2, trying to get these drivers. Nick Bonner out of Talbot. Joe Heater for 310. Policing on, he's got it looks like he's going to call tonight. That thing is possibly right on the edge. So let's bring him to a stop. I think that is going to be it. Right there. Your 608 is Josh Burns out of Louisville. Second place is the 34 of Tyler Dodd. And in third is going to be the number 12, Eric Long, out of Brimfield. Congratulations to all those drivers. And again, a big thank you to each and every driver